Linda mkatono mbanjogera You are welcome to St. Jude Family Projects and Rural Training Center for Sustainable and Integrated Organic Agriculture. So, St. Jude Family Projects was started in 1991 as a small family farm by John and Josephine Chiza. So, prior to that, they used to just farm, practicing subsistence farming, but then after many years of trying and failing, they later on resorted to getting this knowledge all the way to communities. So St. Jude Family Projects registered officially as a CBO in 1993. That was May 1993. And then went on to register as an NGO in 1997. The registration was necessary because they were dealing with many farmers, and as a requirement by government, they had to register the institution. So we've been working with small-scale farmers for the last 27 and plus years, if I'm to count. So because of that, over the years, St. Jude has been implementing easy-to-do practices in organic agriculture or agroecology-related practices to farmers so that they can use these as a way of changing their livelihoods, but again still remembering that the environment has to be given priority. So basically the agriculture that we've been practicing all these years and what we are still practicing and what we hope to practice even in the future is basically based on agriculture that is going to care for the environment. So as we farm, we always remind farmers that there is no any other planet they are going to migrate to. It is always going to be planet Earth. So they have always to remember that as they farm, it should be safe agriculture. So this method of using inorganic fertilizers, we always discourage farmers from. This method of planting genetically modified seed is always, discouraged from farmers. This method of using systems that are not in any way helpful to the environment, but rather detrimental to it, are always discouraged from farmers. So what are our target groups? We always deal with women. Why women? Because 64 or 68% of Uganda's farmers are actually women. They are heavily engaged in agriculture. These are the people that provide food for homesteads. These are people that actually are directly in contact with the children at home. But again, still also, for the general welfare of the family, it is always a woman that is always faced with all this challenge. Much as, yes, men, we come in once in a while to support financially, but you find at the end of the day, it is a woman who is going to be faced with a challenge of making sure there is enough to eat, both for the man in the house, but again, so also the children and the entire family at large. So that's why we included women, because in most cases, when there is hunger, when there is any form of, destruction on the environment, it is the woman that is going to be faced with the utmost trouble. Then again, still we have children. Why? Because children is the future of Uganda. You cannot build the future of a nation without considering children. Children must be given priority. So we find them in schools where they are, because those are the collection centers we can easily use. The mechanism we use in these schools is based on the scope, schools, colleges, permaculture system. So how we do this is we report to these schools, we sign memorandums of understanding or the memoranda of understanding with these schools, and then get them engaged so they can actually allow us implement our programs in their school. So why the young ones? Because when you look at Uganda's future, without us engaging these youngsters, there is no way we are going to get them interested in agriculture, and in the long run, we cannot enhance or ensure the food security of a nation. So that's why we have brought in the young children. How do we do that? We get them engaged in school practice. They work on the small acreages of land they have for schools. They plant this and that. But again, still, we encourage the school administration to actually allow them use that as a lunchtime program. So they can always have this food cooked at lunch, because most of them report from the day section every day, and they come to school without enough to eat. They don't come or they don't report with food to school. So we encourage the schools to actually prepare this very food for these students, so they can also become encouraged or become interested in this as a way of actually living. So agriculture that way will be, we shall entice the young children to actually grow up knowing that agriculture is also one other sector that can be taken up and utilized really wholly and genuinely. Then again, still we have the youth. Why the youth? Because it's a lost group. You find that most of the youths do whatever they do simply because they are not guided. You find most of them in politics, shouting every day, fighting all those running battles with the police. But maybe they are not guided. They would have utilized that time and energy doing something profitable elsewhere. So we always encourage them that in case they have to, to look out for any job opportunity, anything genuinely done and can earn a living for them, then that should be agriculture. They have the land home, but most of them have sold it off to purchase, borders and go to town and ride them around. And, in the long run, they end up with nothing substantial to show for the many years they have spent as youths. So we encourage them to begin early. And how do we do that? We go to secondary schools, for example, and we engage them so that they can become part of us. Basing on that, it's one of the main reasons as to why we went ahead to establish an agricultural college. And that was started in 2020. So far, we are around 106 students, and most of them are youths. Of the 166 students, 44 are actually doing agriculture as a course, National Certificate Agriculture. And what we deal with when we are actually engaging them in their day-to-day learning is we emphasize more on the practices and less on the theory. We give 25% of what we teach as theory, and the 75% of what we teach is practical. Why? Because we want to roll out people that are actually well conversant with what they are doing, and they can easily survive, not people that can go around the country looking for jobs, but rather employable people. Someone you can easily, glad yourself in, that they can easily go out there and, create something profitable and substantial. Yep. Yep.
Different farms,
yep.
You explain what is technical stuff.
Yep. So we are going to start off with the farm tour. We shall start with this permaculture side. This is the permaculture side. So we are going to start off with this biofertilizer center. They are actually doing, some of the practices I've been talking about, and we are going to go in and see what have they done and how are they really doing that, so we can see easily and get to know. So we can now come in. So we are having this batch of students. This is first year, mixed with second year students, agriculture. And what they are basically doing is they are trying to practice some of those agricultural practices I was talking about, but this time around in the field of, safe manure production. We have many different types of manures. Okay, some of them will be seen up there. We shall film some of them up there. But what we have here is basically the biofertilizers. So this is a biofertilizer synthesis plant. And what we deal with here is we are synthesizing, biofertilizers from the readily available materials on the farm in an agroecological way, using science in the background. So we are basically using the science from the class, but again still, we are going ahead to make sure that they are utilizing that science in a more appropriate way. That means in a more practical way. So before they even reach that far, they have to deal with one simple thing, the synthesis of native microbes. The native microbes are synthesized from the environment itself. So when you look around here, we have this tank here. This is a native microbe tank. And what we do here is we are synthesizing native microbes from within the environment. As you see, when I open here, you can come and film in. We are seeing these. These are the microorganisms from this area all around St. Jude. This is the tank. So this is the mother tank. There are billions and billions and billions of microorganisms within, but synthesized in the at most best way possible. So what we have inside here, we are actually synthesizing microorganisms from maize bran and the normal environment around. So we pick leaves from under a tree or somewhere where there is some forest coverage. So we pick those leaves, bring them inside here, commix them together, and then later on synthesize them by using molasses, because molasses are the food to the microorganisms. So as the molasses or the microorganisms feed on the molasses, they allow the process of fermentation to kick-start off, and that way the rampant increase in the number of microorganisms within the tank. And so whenever we are going to carry out any biofertilizer synthesis within here, any type of biofertilizer, because we are synthesizing 116 biofertilizers right now, but before we actually kickstart them off, we have to scoop off and collect a sample just from this. Now this is a sample from this. You can't see the microorganisms because of course they're microscopic, okay? So we shall collect this sample and inoculate. So this is an inoculum. We use this as inoculum that we actually use to inoculate whatever we are going to synthesize. So if, for example, we are coming up with Spamagro, we shall have to collect a sample of this. Bokashi, we shall have to collect a sample of this. Whatever type of biofertilizer inside here has to be collected from the tank or inoculated with a sample from the native microbial tank. So we have a lot of microbial data growing within the biofertilizer facility. And it's because of that that we are going to end up, having a lot of it being, collected from within. And then you will see around. So after this native microbial tank, we shall be able to see that from this, we are able to come all the way and now come up with other biofertilizers. For example, behind here, we have Spamagro. Spamagro is another biofertilizer which we synthesize from cow dung, milk, yeast, and ash, and then molasses. So this one is a Spamagro tank, and all the biofertilizers that we synthesize from within here are utilized well as a foliar spray for plants. So we get these, put them in a knapsack, put water, and then later on spray on the leaves themselves of the plant. So when we spray on the leaves of the plant gets ample time to feed on the foliar or the nitrogen that we sprayed from the leaves themselves. So because a plant feeds in many ways, it can feed from the leaf top, but again still a plant can feed from the root zone. So when we are spraying, we make sure most of what we are spraying, the microbial activity that we are actually trying to put onto the plant is put below the leaf of the plant, because the stomata of any plant or the leaves of the plant contains stomata at the bottom end, not the top end like most people think. So we have to spray on the bottom part so that they can now take in the much needed nitrogen for vegetative growth. And that's what actually promotes, foliar growth or vegetative growth. And when we have this vegetative growth, that means the photosynthetic process is going to be enhanced, and that means the food production within the plant is going to be, ensured, and then the plant can readily grow. Then we have the humilic acid tank here. This is the humilic acid tank, and inside this humilic acid tank, we have synthesis of humus or humilic acids that are very vital for crop growth from the environment itself. So when you look around here, this tank, you will see basically, when you look closely, you actually see plain water. But in reality, it's not plain water. It is water that is well balanced pH-wise, and again still it's water that is well balanced when it comes to addition of nutrients within the soil system. Now, for example, if I pulled out this, someone can come close and be able to see this closely. This comes in as normal humus. But when we put it into the tank, and then we run ethanol through it, and then we leave it standing for some given period of time, like for example 24 hours, and ash, in the long run, in the morning we shall not have humus again. We shall have plain water that is well balanced with all the nutrients required for the growth of the plant. So we can apply on the root zone, you can apply on the roots or on the leaves of the plant, and that way you can end up with a plant that is well balanced. So we go ahead here. Yeah. So we have this bokashi mixture that they are trying to do up here. This is a substitute to what compost manure used to be. In the past, people used to deal with compost manure, or dealing with all these other farmyard manure, vineyard manure, and all that stuff. But then later on, we found out that when you are dealing with this, due to modernity, because people are always researching every day. Unlike in Africa here, where people do not really love research, but in developed countries, people are always researching. So we wanted to actually get this on board, and we changed from using compost manure to using bokashi. Much as also compost manure is good, because you don't do it with the Benz 1944 simply because it's old, and then you go with the Benz 2008. No, you have to continuously use it, but also reaching out for those that are advanced in nature. The same applies to this. So bokashi is an advanced way of actually coming up with manure. Now with bokashi, what we deal with is basically we are going to end up with results of humus. A plant feeds on humus, rather not manure. So most people have it in mind that a plant is feeding on manure. No, it's actually feeding on humus. So in whichever system we are running, we have to make sure the end product should be humus. And once it's humus, that means the plant is going to have the rightful need. So imagine if you are to be a human being who is given food every day. Someone starts giving you food today, the next day food, the other day food, but tells you not to eat the food, but rather look at the food until the last day of the week, and then tells you to eat the food. You will definitely eat the food, but it will be spoiled food. That is what we used to do whenever we are feeding these plants with compost manure. But then later on, when bokashi came in handy, it is now giving us the much needed humus that the plant feeds on immediately. It's already available food for the plant. So what we do here is we are running the process of fermentation, not putrefaction or decomposition. In compost manure, we are decomposing. But in bokashi, we are actually doing what? Fermenting products. So when you ferment products, you basically break them down into the most minute, substances that are required by the plant or elements that are required by the plant. For example, if it is nitrogen, you are breaking down nitrogen into amino acids. Now the plants are going to feed on the amino acids. They are not going to feed on the plain nitrogen or protein nitrogen like it used to be or whatsoever. So what we are going to do here is we are going to end up with a product that is well balanced with all the nutritional values, with all the nutrients required to even allow the microbial activity within the soil to thrive. Because we are pumping carbon into the soil layers, but on top of that we are also pumping the much needed bacteria or microbial activity within the soil to allow the process of chelation, to allow the immobilized nutrients to be mobilized, and then the plant can easily feed on these nutrients. So that is bokashi. It will take 14 days for it to be ready. So compost takes 28 days, bokashi takes 14 days, okay? And then cold compost, on the other hand, takes 6 months. That means we are now going in for something that is, much faster and readily available for plants to take. That's why we always go in for bokashi, which is much superior in nature. Now, going up here, we shall be able to see these many different, nitrogen extracts, so different microbial extracts. Now, for example, this is the internal digestive system of a cow, all put within here. What we are looking out for is that product that comes off, the digested product that comes off the rumen of a cow. So all through the rumen, reticulum, omasum, abomasum, there is bacteria culture. So that bacteria culture, billions and billions of them are required into the soil. So what we shall end up with is a drum of them. So whenever they are slaughtering a cow, what we simply do is to collect off that stomach part, and this is what we've got after a long period of time. Now this one can easily work well as a soil reconditioner, not only a soil reconditioner but also microbial source for the soil, so that they can actually be well balanced. The carbon aspect will be balanced, the fiber content is also well balanced, and after a period of time it can remain part of the soil system, which will allow now proper growth of the soil. So this is the internal digestive system of a cow, and all the microbial activity within is very much needed by the plant and the soil system, so it can remain part, so that we can have productivity of the soil well balanced, instead of using NPK and all these other inorganic fertilizers. We have humic acids here. Yes, I'm actually trying to summarize. We have the maize extract here, whereby we collect silicon, and the silicon is used well as a catalyst in all these fertilizers. But then we have this one, the Spirea lime sulfur brew, which is coming in handy to help farmers. This is really very good when it comes to treating plants of blight. All this blight and whatsoever is easily treated using this. All these fungal infections on the leaves of plants can easily be treated with this. Even for tomatoes that are actually are affected by all these many fungal infections can also be treated by this. So if farmers can have a substitute to what Indophil does, then that is really very, very good. But the thing is, there is less knowledge dissemination, and most of the farmers always fail out in getting knowledge disseminated to them for such platforms. So that's why we always need platforms like Pelham and all that stuff, so they can help farmers really understand the need, why it is necessary to have all this. Then we shall go out there. We have the nitrogen extract from blood. We are extracting nitrogen from blood, and we always try or make sure that we use whatever we've extracted from the blood for the betterment of plants. Now we have specific enzymes, papaline and bromelain. These are enzymes that are used in this case. So bromelain will help us break down the nitrogen aspect within the blood in the hemoglobin. So it helps break down the hemoglobin into the basic nitrogen components that we need for the plant. But again, still also papaline will help separate the plasma from the hemoglobin, and that way we are going to end up with the two forms of blood ending up as an enzymatic reaction within that is going to end up into a heavily rich nitrogen fertilizer for plants. So those are some of the few biofertilizers I can point my hand at here. Because of time, we shall easily move out and start elsewhere. Yeah, so let's go up here, and then we start off with the vermicompost, and we see what is there. So when you come up here, we have the vermicompost site. And for the vermicompost site, we are having a number of things done here. But basically what we are dealing with is earthworms. we always get earthworms to do the work instead of having us do the work. We always use microorganisms and macroorganisms do that work for us. So let's go inside here and then we shall be able to see this. So we are having earthworms inside, okay? They are doing the science. They are helping us do the work. And what we are having inside here is the much needed growth. You come around and see this. So these are earthworms that are trying to come out and feed. You come and capture them when they are still actually up. These are the earthworms that are trying to feed from the food that we've just put. You see? All these are earthworms. And what they are doing is they are basically feeding on the cow dung and all the microbiodata that is within. So they will eat through this, and finally we shall end up with what? With soil that is well balanced. So we've already put water for them so they can have enough to feed on. But again also the cow dung that is much needed. So what they do, they break through the layers of the already digested what? Cow dung. And they help this cow dung, so they help the cow dung to break down instead of having it lie down in the gardens and whatsoever. We are having it being broken down here. But again still also we are collecting off or siphoning off some amount of fertilized liquid here that we are going to use as a fertilizer spray, which is the vermiliquid. Or vermi-tea. We usually refer to it as vermi-tea. Why? Because most of this vermi-tea ends up elsewhere being put on plants to allow fertility to thrive, but again also the soil system so that we can encourage the thriving of natural ecological systems within. Now we have all this, and it's a tank that is basically a source for vermi-tea and actually dry what? Vermi compost that comes off.
Again.
Yeah. Yes, this is the worms. These are how the worms are, and these are red worms actually from Kenya. They are not the normal earthworms that we have. These are red worms from Kenya, and what they do is they basically help us break down whatever we've put inside that is decomposable. And they love cow dung. They love any kitchen waste, anything to do with anything that is not acidic in nature, anything that is not oily in nature, even meat itself, anything that you put inside here that can easily be broken down, can easily be broken down within. So that's why we have it as a system, and it has helped most of the farmers we train to actually replicate the same and be able to have readily available fertility for their plants. And this is what we use as vermi-tea for the thriving of natural ecosystems. So all through we are actually collecting the juice, but again also the many different sources of nutrients from within. So we shall now move down and see a water collection tank up there, this side.
We can go?
Yeah, we can go. Yes. Am I too fast? I'm too fast? Okay. Okay, I'm going to scale down. Yeah. So we have two, cattle projects. We have one here and then we have one the other side. But maybe we can cover the one the other side and leave this one for the interest of time, because we shall still find it down there. So let's go to the poultry project the other side. So inside this entire setup, we are having a permaculture site. This used to be a dry area, a normal grazing field, okay, for animals before St. Jude acquired the land. But when we acquired the land, we automatically and systematically developed it into a farm so that we can showcase to most of the farmers who have these excuses. I can't deal with the land that is rocky. I can't, this land is so, deprived of nutrients and whatsoever. This land is so nutrient deficient. I just can't use it. We actually wanted to showcase to these people, because we are a demonstration farm, but again also a training center, but again still an agricultural college. So we wanted to show them that it can actually work. So how did we do that? By simply and slowly transforming the land into productivity. You see, we went on by plowing the land and then later on collecting as much water as possible, because if you have water within a given piece of land and you can collect it within one area, that water can allow the thriving of plant life. So how do we do that? By putting in systems, or having systems in place that allow water to be collected. The most fertile aspect of land is actually the silt. Chetuita enfufu. That is the most fertile piece of land. Oh, that's the most fertile aspect of land. So we collect off that, because it's all the minerals that are within, that are wanted within the soil system. So as minerals leach into the soil system, they are still required to be retained in the land so that plants can feed on that. So we collect, or we put in contours in place so that we can collect as much water as possible, retain it into the soil system, carry out agricultural practices such as mulching, plant, crop covers, or plants that are very, very much good at, covering the landscape, so that we can limit the amount of transpiration that comes off the land, but again still also allow the biodegeneration of all the leaves that come in and all the mulches that come on the land, so they can break down and allow carbon to remain part of the soil system. If you have fiber, if you have carbon in the soil system, that means you are going to have better water retainance capacity within the soil system, hence allowing productivity and microbial growth to remain part of the soil system. So that's why we always deal with a system that will allow or guarantee that before we even go ahead. So again, still we have all these, even on top of the contours, we make sure we plant as many things as possible so we can limit, land waste. We always try as much as we can not to waste any piece of land. Any small scale that we have, any small piece of land that is available, empty piece of land is put to proper use by planting crop varieties or plant varieties that actually matter in that land. So you will see we have Tithonia, we have a number of other crop systems within. We are going to go through and see before we actually match the other side. Yeah, so we are going to walk around and see all this vetiver grass. For example, if I was to give an example, vetiver grass is this that we are seeing. What it does basically is a food for the animals, one of the best feeds for the animals, but again still also it is a very, very good sink for heavy metals. What I mean by a sink for heavy metals is that it actually pulls out all, removes all the heavy metals from the piece of land. Lead, silver, and all these others can easily be trapped by vetiver grass and taken out of the soil system. That means the poison aspect of the land will actually be removed from the soil system. That means whatever you plant will not be affected. You are removing the heavy metals that are cancerous in nature, but you are doing it in a more organic way and safe way. And that is what we are having in here. The yams also, the taro yams are doing the same system. They're helping us keep a system free of those heavy metals. And then that way we can easily have a system that is well balanced, that can actually work well. Then we have the banana plants that you see within. Okay, let's go in between here. So you'll be capturing me from that side. So all these different plant systems that you see here are basically for the betterment of this area. The plants, the banana plants that we have put, the plants or different types of different varieties of plants that are planted within. Because one of the principles of permaculture is biodiversity. You have to plant as much or as many plants as possible within a limited area or within a very small piece of land. That way you are allowing the symbiotic system that happens between plants, or the symbiotic process. Things like companion cropping are very crucial in this, whereby you plant onions alongside, plant systems that are actually easily affected by crop pests, or easily affected by diseases. When you have all these onions planted within, for example, they release some of the smells that are going to do away with most of the pests, because they do not want to be in an area with such. Rosemary, for example. Rosemary is very good. It helps a soil system retain. Yeah, this is rosemary, for example. Apart from being medicinal, it is also good or friendly to its plants or the neighbors around it. The four sister system, whereby you have this rosemary intercropped with it, the maize, for example, intercropped with sugarcane, intercropped with banana plants. It helps a lot when it comes to allowing the symbiotic process work. So that's why we have rosemary intercropped within. And in that way, it also helps the soil system thrive, because in one way or another, it allows elimination of pathogens within the soil system. So that's why we have things like rosemary. Going up again, when we move up here, you'll be able to see black nightshade. We are actually preparing for more planting, but you'll be able to see black nightshade. You'll be able to see lemongrass. This is lemongrass. And one positive part of lemongrass is that it helps a lot when it comes to eliminating termites within a plantation system. It is one of the most organic ways you can eliminate termites without necessarily having to kill them. Why don't we kill termites? Because we need them. First of all, termites are very crucial in helping us break down anything that is heavily embedded with lignin, hemicellulose, and all these other sugars. But again, also, they are very important because they allow us to do away with most of the snakes that actually affect human beings, because if you are in an area where there is a snake, you won't be comfortable. But lemongrass can do the math for you. It simply does away with them, because the limonene that is produced by this lemongrass suffocates the breathing mechanism of a snake, and the snake cannot stay closer to where lemongrass is. So we always encourage farmers to have such crops in place, instead of buying all these many remedies that are exotic or synthetic in nature, which in the long run are going to be of effect to actually, the general upbringing of the soil environment, or keeping, upholding conservation of the environment and all that stuff. So for that, we always use remedies that are nature friendly, and they are present in nature, and they can easily be available for the poor people in the communities. So that's why we are using this. Tithonia, on the other hand, is another source of what? Nitrogen. This is one of the most magical plants that is actually required in agroecology. It is so good because it contains a lot of nitrogen in it. And because of Tithonia, we've always found, even all through the most dry areas of Uganda, you'll always find Tithonia survives, even on the roadsides, everywhere, whether it's the dry season or what. Why does it survive? Simply because it has been tailored to support life within the, to support life, first of all, on its own to survive, but again also to support life around it. It's a very good nitrogen fixer within the soil system, but again also, it is a very good source of fertilizers that we make, plant teas, manure teas, and all that stuff, compost manuring, but also a source of food for the animals like cattle. We dry it up, we cut it into smaller, sizes, and the animal now can feed on it. And once it feeds on it, alongside, feeding, just simply feeding on it as a source of food, it also provides the medical aspect that is required for the animal to actually thrive or remain healthy, for the betterment of the farmer and the betterment of the entire farm. So that integration system is very important. Yeah. So we are now going to go all the way to the chicken project. I was trying to talk of the crop part because I was leaving it afar. So we are going to go to the poultry project, and we shall be able to see what is there also. So in the poultry project, we have a number of poultry birds that we deal with. We have layers, we have broilers, we have all these dual purpose types that we are dealing with that side, and we are going to see how we are doing that and how we have managed to actually move on with it. This is actually our nursery bed, but right now we've shifted it all the way up there to the greenhouses, where we shall cover with time as we move on. Let's go this side and see. They don't mind the cattle project. We have a much more, bigger system down there. Shall be able to see. So Sebo tuze kulambulako. Sebo. Yingirako munda. Yeah? No need. I want him to go inside so you can capture him from the outside. Eh? Yeah. Sebyo beto bifaako yingira buyingizi bagala kwangu abali kubudde yingira buyingizi mundo jeno. Yeah. Yes. So we have the poultry section here. We have subdivided these birds into they are a total of 3,500 birds. But then we have subjected them. We have 1,200 here. We have 600 here and 600 the other side. And these are layers. These are laying birds. And inside here, they are coming to around 4 months. They have started throwing the first egg. So we have already gotten some eggs out of them. And they are still, laying all the way. What we do basically is to feed them on well-mixed feed and plenty of water, because it's water that does the math. Not feed itself, but rather water. Even if you have all the feed and you don't have water, you won't basically get results. So we have to make sure there is plenty of water 24 hours, and they always take water all day round. They are just similar to what you would see broilers do. Okay, the only difference is that for them they lay an egg at the end of the day. So you have to make sure you feed them well. By the end of the day you have to have an egg come out. And again, still, because to be on a profitable end or to break even, you have to make sure they are well fed, and you have to make sure they have plenty of water. First of all, we ensure that all the medication process for them is adhered to. First of all the vaccinations that were done right from the beginning, right from the time when they were in the brooding section, all the way to this age, they are still being medicated. Because without medicating them, there is no way you can ensure productivity. For you to break even, you have to make sure medication is superb. You have to make sure that at the end of 6 months, you remove all the litter, because by then it is filled with manure, which can later on be used in the gardens, but again still has to be removed from the system itself. So we always make sure that is given priority. Again still, we have to make sure we put a lot of greens. In a week, we have to make sure we put greens 3-4 times, because with greens, there is a balanced system that is, ensured, especially nutrition-wise. So we have to make sure they have greens and plenty of them. They have water and plenty. And then we have to make sure the feed is well mixed. So they feed well, they drink well, and then they get all this, greenery coming in. Then definitely you're going to end up with the results at the end of the day. That's why we always try to ensure they are doing well when it comes to that, for productivity to come in. So we ensure the room is well aerated. We have all these large windows for provision of air all through, because if you don't provide enough air, you are going to end up with and ammonium poisoning. Most of the birds will die, but because of ammonia. Because remember, in their waste they have a lot of ammonia in their droppings, so this ammonia is going to accumulate within the entire household or poultry house, and then you are going to end up with a system which is well intensified with ammonia, and that is dangerous, because ammonia is poisonous in itself. So that means the animal will actually get you will end up with blindness coming in as a result, but again also suffocation. The birds will actually start dying. So you have to ensure there is enough aeration. But again, so like I said, we always have to make sure there is we are utilizing the building for the best. You have to collect as much water as possible. So this is clean water that is in the long run used again to feed the birds, and that water is stored in the other tank where we are going to go and see. That water is stored underground on polythene bags or paper. Yeah, Daniel Chiza Alidechi. Daniel Chiza Alidechi. Daniel Chiza Alidechi. I'm the head of training, St. Jude Family Projects. Head of training, St. Jude Family Projects. And also deputy principal, St. Jude Agriculture and Vocational Institute. Yeah. So we have to make sure that water is well enhanced and well collected, because at the end of the day, if it is not collected, you are not really breaking even as a farmer. You have to make systems, or to put systems in place that are going to allow utilization of even the utmost, even the smallest of, products on the farm, over the smallest of buildings on the farm. So by collecting too much water as possible, we are able to have water and plenty of it all through the year round. Because it is raining, this is a very large building, that water is required, and that water must be used for purposes of feeding the animals, feeding the poultry birds, but again also making sure there is plenty, if at all it is to be utilized elsewhere, like for irrigation purposes, feeding other animals like piggery and all that stuff. So that water is stored in the underground tank here, and that underground tank is constructed very cheaply. The cost of constructing that underground tank is so low, like any farmer in the village can easily do that. So the entire cost will be 1.5 million for a tank that can handle 150,000 liters of water. And that is what we are going to see here. So what we have inside here is a tank, and that tank is collecting all this water from this, and that water is collected and stored underground. And that water is seated on a polythene bag. It's not seated on anything to do with cement and all that stuff, because that cracks with time. And that means you keep constructing again and again, and that is an added cost. So to prevent all those costs, we have to utilize systems that are going to be very much cheaper and available for poor farmers to use. So this is what we have. The water is collected under here, and it's 150,000 liters of it. And that water is seated on a plastic or polythene plastic, actually. Polythene plastic, and it's all stored in there. It's a plastic bag, and the water is seated on that. That water is pumped out using a treadle pump, using a fuel pump, using any system that can get the water out. And when there is a lot of, for example, if there is an overfill, that water will actually exit through the overflow pipe the other side. And then we leave that as an aeration point for the water to actually remain fresh all the time. So if there is any accumulation of, excess gases and all that stuff, they can easily escape through that vent. But the other side, we have an overflow pipe that now turns it or sends it into the the cemented ponds the other side, which we later on use for fish farming in a permaculture way. So all the runoff that comes in with all the nutrients attached and all that stuff is utilized in the other pond, where we can now rear catfish and all that stuff, and then a farmer can end up having these systems within an area, even if they are not closer to the swamps. But we have a swamp pond which we shall see down there. So this is that type of what? Of well or pond. You can go close and maybe take the inside aspect of it. And then we shall now move to the upper part. It's dark, yeah. Maybe, I don't know if you have a torch, something like that. Yeah, but that's how it looks. That slit is basically for allowing the pipe to flow in, and the top part has been covered using a plastic bag to prevent snakes and any other any other creeping animals or crawling animals to fall within the water. So to prevent that, we always put a plastic bag, and it helps prevent such. So most of our farmers have had this constructed by themselves, and at times by St. Jude itself. We construct it for farmers so they can actually have safe drinking water. Yeah, this is safe drinking water, yeah, because it's clean, it's from up. It's not the other one. We have another one which is basically from the surface runoff. So when you see that surface runoff, it's also clean, but it will be good for drinking when you're dealing with animals like pigs and all that stuff. But for people, it's not safe. But this one is even safe for people because it's coming from the top and, moving through the plastic pipes all the way down here. And the top part has been well covered with iron sheets and all that stuff. So, of course, there's no way someone is going to anything is going to end up inside to pollute the water. That's why we are keeping it that way. So this can handle 150,000 liters of water. So we are now going to go up there.
How long does 150,000 take you?
We can't even finish the whole year with it. We can't finish an entire year using this, because in the long run you find that we have already other sources of water, but we are simply collecting this water so that we can have it as a backup. But even a year can go without even us using this water. And at times we always get it out and use it for irrigation, or even let it go to flow out, so that we can have enough space for the rainy season coming in. So we are now going to go all the way up before it becomes dark. The farm is big. I thought you'd come really early, but it's okay. Let's just deal with what we have already. Yes, sir. So
badde ngamba tugende ng'abaana bazze tukwate be tusobola okukwatako kati so basomesa ng'enjuba ekyaliwo then tudde mu byalo
kale sebujiba gyendi sebujibaleko obulamu nga mutambudde ekiro na buliro twabalinze ne tubalinda
yes, connecting to this side. I don't know where we must have different.
Totally different. Very wala.
I don't know we don't have a farm. Sat.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ngamba mangu. So, I'm live, I'm on. Okay, so they are coming, it's like they're coming behind. They're coming from this side. Yeah. So, yeah. So, Chino, one went. Here.
Some can come and stand behind him.
Yeah, so here we have the Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture. We are a Center of Excellence, St. Jude Family Projects. We are selected to act as a knowledge hub for dissemination of organic agriculture knowledge, and knowledge that is actually in the field of agroecology. So whatever we are actually demonstrating here, even on a more small scale, we are doing it in a mind or in a manner that will actually end up promoting the field of agroecology or the field of organic agriculture. So the many teachings we give to people, like I was saying, are centered on this. So the ideology of integration, whereby you cater for the soil and later on the soil what caters for you. Before you actually harvest from the soil, you have to make sure the soil is well balanced. If you don't have the well balanced soil, then there's no way you're going to expect results come from a soil system that you're not feeding. So what we are basically doing here is we are dealing with systems or putting systems in place that are going to work hand in hand to allow a symbiotic correlationship between whatever we put on the land and the human themselves, or the manager, the owner of the farm, but against also the animals that are on the farm itself. So apart from only animals and fauna and whatsoever flora and fauna on the farm, we also deal with the extension wing, disseminating the knowledge to the extension groups that we deal with. People must know whatever is in here. So Pelham Uganda, in collaboration with St. Jude Family Projects, brought this on hand to ensure that there is that, smooth transitioning of knowledge from the knowledge center or centers of excellence all through the many different groups that we are dealing with, or the farmer groups that we've selected to have this, transferred to, so that you can learn and then later on you utilize or teach even others. So it's more like a center that allows that multiplication process. So we have to deal with a process that is going to multiply even further. So at the end of the day, you don't end up with a system that is going to remain with you alone. So even as we train farmers, even as we train the many people we've already touched, we ensure that is given priority. That is given an upper hand so people can learn and take on. But before you actually, allow that happen, you have to make sure you have systems that are easily replicable, that replicability. There should be that, the ability to move on or take on to another level. That's what we are always trying to enforce. So this was selected as a center of excellence, and whatever we are going to watch here is going to be centered on those. They're simple systems, but they can easily be taken on, and someone can use them for purposes that are going to be benefiting the agroecological sector. Not only that, but also making money in the long run. So let's start off, and then because of the light, it's becoming deep, so we have to move fast. Let's see this. So we have this as a mushroom project, but it's soon to be, so it's not in there. Inside here, we have this center, and this center is basically dealing with, using systems or draft animal power enhancement, which will soon come up. We haven't yet opened that. But then here we have a simple system, goat system, that a farmer can easily use. Now you are dealing with poor farmers who need to learn simple things, or need to have systems in place that help them, have a better replica. So a simple structure of this nature can easily be copied by any farmer elsewhere, and they can easily replicate it or put it on their farmsteads. It is very cheap, very simple to construct, and whatever you actually rear within can easily be reared by any farmer, even in the deepest of villages in Uganda. So what we basically deal with is crossbreeding. We deal with pure breeds, crossbreed them with local breeds, because that's what a farmer has on ground. So we always ensure there is that, that connection with the poor farmer. Because you cannot deal with a farmer and when you are on another level, the farmer is also on another different level, and then you think this farmer is going to copy and replicate elsewhere. You have to put systems in place that are easily copied and taken on to another level. So it's a simple structure. Someone can easily copy and replicate, and we have most of our farmers copying this and using them for purposes of that. Again, so we are expanding further to that end, and we shall have all these many different systems put in place. But before we reach there, we have to go in here so we can see what is inside here before we move out to the other side. In here we have simple systems. For example, the rabbitry project. We have the poultry project here. Any simple farmer who doesn't have much can easily copy this and take it on. You can easily carry out crossbreeding of different breeds, the layers, the exotic breeds and all that stuff, and the farmer can easily copy and replicate elsewhere. Simple structure, easy to handle, easy to manage. Whatever is being reared within is easy. You can easily, carry out a cost analysis of such a project, and that will end up with productivity coming out. So this is a simple poultry system. So we have another system here. We have the ducks. The ducks are are poultry birds that most people do not usually, concentrate more on. But they are very good carbon sinks. All the ducks you see, they easily recycle carbon within a soil system. The dung that comes off, all that stuff can easily be copied and taken. You see, all the projects we are putting in place are very tiny. Why? Because the farmer doesn't need something so magnitude. There is no use. You can easily show a farmer something so big, but then at the end of the day, they are going to go home without even counting sense in what you've taken them through. So it's always good to show small things which can easily be replicated elsewhere, and the farmer can use them later on somewhere else, somewhere in their farms, so that they can make money out of such a simple system. But so we took apart some small piece of land which can easily be developed into a demonstration of center for a farmer. We have 8 different farms at St. Jude. We can cater for the large-scale farmers, but again, we can cater for the small-scale farmers, because it's the small-scale farmers that are in plenty. So instead of catering for someone on a large scale, who might not even take the knowledge home, they have already used all the machines, they know everything, it's better to cater for that small farmer who wants to survive. It's all about food security and conserving the environment. So you have always to remember that the replication of the knowledge we do should always, be targeting those that actually are dealing with small acreages of land. Remember, land is not growing anymore, but the population is actually growing big and big every day. So how do we encounter such situations? By putting in place systems that are going to allow easy replication, but again still on a small acreage of land. So a farmer, even the poorest of farmers, can easily do that, and then later on see sense at the end of the day. So we have a maize crib for basically treating and handling seeds that have already been harvested. We have harvesting systems in place, harvesting technology systems and all that stuff, but because of time I can't go into details. That's why I'm trying to be fast. So we have for example, the cattle project there. All the manure that comes off is well treated inside here, and from here I go through the dome all the way to the other side, and then we get it siphoned off and used for purposes of lighting, packaging in canisters, because we want to compress it and sell it off as compressed gas. So we have to package that in canisters and use it for purposes of cooking in houses and all that stuff. But again, still also running in engines, because there are small engines that can run on biogas. So a farmer who was dreaming of, purchasing an engine that is running on petrol and diesel and all that stuff can easily see this as an option and can easily purchase this and use it for purposes of developing themselves without necessarily having to spend much money. So we always remember that as we are farming. So you will see as we move all the way to the other side, you will see where the gas is being treated and how we are using it for purposes of that. So inside here, we are going to deal with biogas. Mugume, go get me a matchbox. Move fast. Muhoz, where is Muhoz? Switch on the system. So the piping system comes all the way to this. Yeah, from that side. So when it reaches here, we are basically having it run. So from only 2 animals, we wanted to showcase to a farmer that even 1 animal can actually run a biogas system. You don't necessarily have to have a large area running on biogas, to run a biogas system. Just 1 animal can actually supply you with a much needed gas for you to actually run that. So Elias, bring the matchbox here. Go in and light it. So we are running gas now, and that gas, don't go very close because it's highly combustive. So the smell of gas can easily be heard. That is methane. Basically, we are breaking down. So you see, that gas, when completely connected, will have, a lighting system. We shall have a cooking system. We shall have a compressing system, so we can compress in canisters. But again, we shall also have a system that will allow this gas to be utilized for purposes